made contact and shattered.
At some point, Chris locates what's called a dry bag.
Law enforcement had considered Laundrie the only person of interest in the murder of his fiancée, Gabby Petito.
Liberty, a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her. They've been yelling for her. She's been gone for about 10 minutes now.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Hello? That's John.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here for another ATS live stream. Today, we'll be talking about Debbie Collier's death investigation. This death investigation started out with law enforcement telling us that this was a very deliberate and personal homicide. Now it seems as though they're backtracking and maybe changing the cause of death. So, cause and manner of death. We have yet to see a real actual autopsy or toxicology report, and we have no listed suspects. So we're kind of floating along with trying to figure this puzzle piece out. We've got two siblings, the son of Debbie and the daughter of Debbie at odds, which is unfortunate, but it's noteworthy. And yeah, we still have yet to find out where the lighter is that she purchased. We don't know the location of the keys. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, so yeah, we don't know where the lighter is she purchased. We don't know where the keys were or are. And what was her reasoning for her buying the poncho? We never located it. We never located the packaging of it. What was it used for? If it was burned up, why was it purchased in the first place? You know, Amanda stayed very quiet for a long time. And then as soon as the theory pointed towards something other than murder, she felt comfortable to speak out, which I thought was sort of strange. We went through her comment that she spoke out on social media in our last stream. It was a very angry tirade, you know, telling people in her family they can go F themselves for thinking that she had done something. Just very, I don't know. It's just, you know, in her interview that she did on her cousin's channel, we broke it down on CDT's channel. And if you guys need a good breakdown, definitely check out her stream. It was 2 streams long because the interview is like an hour and a half. But just very, you know, I couldn't even stop watching it. It was like a train wreck. She is openly admitted to having addiction problems in the past and being bipolar. Maybe some of her erratic and manic behaviors and mannerisms were because of those illnesses. It's hard to say, I guess, but I feel like anyone who watched that interview was just kind of stunned in a way. So let me just read through some of my notes, and then I'm thinking we'll just play the court TV segment that we've been talking about playing since Friday, and we'll just break that down together. I've only seen little bits of it, so it'll kind of be like a live reaction with you guys this morning right here, right now. So first, I want to go through some of my notes just on Amanda's interview that I had noted. So family members have blamed Amanda. It's not just her brother. So she had made a comment in the interview about, you know, other family members at her memorial and, you know, just some drama going on. And it's not just her brother who thinks that there's something strange with Amanda and her boyfriend, Andrew. She obviously moved back to Georgia and around Debbie only 2 days prior to Debbie's death. Her paternal cousin is the one that did the podcast. The cousin never asked her about the argument that the neighbor heard the night before Debbie's death. We have no clarification on that at all, besides what the media reported very early on, and that was that they had heard shouting, etc., from the residents. So Amanda, her stories have been kind of all over the place. We can't get a direct time of when she checked her messages and seen the Venmo. Media has reported that she'd seen it right away and tried calling her. We've got Amanda saying that it was around 5 p.m. We've got Andrew saying that it wasn't until, 5:30. Amanda says she didn't notice it until, Steve calls 911 at 6 p.m. and claims Amanda didn't notice the message for 2 hours prior to that 911 call. So that would be 4 p.m. So it's just the story about the Venmo has just been all over the place and changing. Steve didn't even know about the money when he called 911. He only knew about the cryptic message. So that's also noteworthy. So Andrew claims that the Venmo wasn't seen till 4:17. Why did Amanda wait so long to call 911? Her appearances, if you look at her media report, her media interview that she did, which we'll play just a recap of first, it was, in my opinion, it's strange how she's changed her appearance so quickly. Her hair was longer, blonde, and then all of a sudden she chopped it off, dyed it brown. I just find that noteworthy. I'm not sure if it means anything or whatever. I know people like to change their hair, but it should also be noted that Debbie supposedly gave her a haircut. So it just stuns me a little bit that her mother, who passed away, gave her a haircut the night before she died, and now suddenly Amanda changes her haircut. Like I feel like people who lose somebody want to hold on to certain things like that. And like, if my mother did my hair, and again, I'm not Amanda, Amanda's not me, we're all different. But if my mother did my hair and then she died the next day, I wouldn't be changing my hair for a long time. I just feel like part of like my mourning process and all that, like I wouldn't be changing it after my mom just did it. You know what I mean? But again, that's just an opinion type thing. It has nothing to do with evidence against her and all that. I just find that strange and noteworthy. In my opinion, I felt like some of the moments in the podcast interview with Amanda and her cousin were a bit over dramatized, like with her crying face. There were no wet tears. The only time I had seen wet tears really was when she spoke about her own troubles with drugs and cried for herself. Again, that's my opinion. I'm not sure how you guys feel about it. And good morning, Pink Dolly. It's so good to see you. And everyone else who is here, thank you so much for being here. Cray Cray, Mel Mac, allegedly, Evil CJ, Rosario, Cats Meow, Nicole, Georgie. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm just going through my notes quick, not really checking chat, but I appreciate you all being here. And if you could give me a thumbs up, that'd be a great way to start the stream off. So, I feel like there were times in the interview with her cousin, she was asked a question and I felt like she was buying herself time. She would kind of beat around the answer or do this long drawn out explanation or something, you know what I mean? What shocked me was when he asked her to describe her mom and she went silent. Yeah, there were just very strange moments. And there were times where she was speaking about how joyful and joyous her mother was and happy and always helping people out and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this doesn't sound like somebody who was like mentally ill enough to unalive themselves, which is what her theory is, Amanda's theory. Good morning, allegedly with Brittany J. It's good to see you. Was a burnt lighter found underneath the car and melted gas canister? We don't know anything about the lighter. No remnants. We know absolutely nothing. Nothing was mentioned. The only thing that law enforcement said was many of the items or most of the items, the majority of the items that she had bought at this dollar store were found at the scene, but they never said anything about the poncho or the lighter. And good morning, Allie79. It's good to see you. And Without Borders and everyone else joining us. So let me see what else I have in my notes. So she claimed at one point that her brother doesn't respect the law enforcement and that That's why law enforcement was talking to her and giving her information and not her brother, because her brother doesn't have respect for law enforcement, even though we find out last year, Amanda, when she got arrested, was being very disrespectful to the officer who was bringing her to the jail, taunting her the whole way. Jeffrey has no criminal history. Amanda does. So, it just seems a little bit twisted in Amanda's mind which one actually has respect for law enforcement or the law. Another big question is, if she was driving around the area, the day that Debbie's found, she got to the scene very quickly, quicker than she would have if she was in her family's area of Athens. She was very close to the scene, got there within 25 minutes, claimed that she was in the area looking around for her mother. But if she was up in that area, people want to know, how did she not see the van? Because she drove up there and then came back when she apparently she had heard or she checked Waze, the app or something that tells you where police presence is. So she was sort of like tracking police presence in the area. And that's how she got there quick. Like, I don't know, her story was all over the place there. But the only route to get to that area, she would have had to drive past her mother's van that was there. So, strange. The Venmo history that we've seen shows that Debbie sent Amanda money frequently. There's no money being sent to Jeffrey. So, and she claims that her mother was giving away all her items. But remember, at the scene, when she's asked by the police, does your mother have any history of mental illness, blah, 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 she told them no. So, and then she thought somebody did this to her mother. So it's just been all over the place, guys. What I want to do now is kind of reference a little bit of the notes from Criminality. If you guys haven't checked out Criminality, please do so. She does really good sleuthing, and she broke down the interview even further in her community post. I've listened to the interview when I was moderating for CDT's channel, so a lot of my thoughts on the interview were kind of organic and flowing in her live chat. But I think that this reference to Criminality's notes will kind of just sum it up even more before we start playing the court TV thing, okay? Because I didn't want to play Amanda's interview on that podcast again, because a lot of channels have done it. I watched it on Gray Hughes. I seen it on No Thanks Investigates. Crazy Crime Chick did a breakdown. So I've seen it here and there. I didn't want to bring you guys the same type of breakdown. So these are Criminality's notes on Amanda's interview. And then we'll start watching this court TV thing. So she said, Amanda believes that it's her mom in the Family Dollar store. Because remember, Jeffrey's brother isn't sure. Let me drink my coffee real quick. And good morning, everybody. And thank you, Pink Dahlia, for linking Criminality's channel. If you want to check out her channel, please subscribe to it. I'm using her notes from her community page. She's always got good updates on the community page, and then obviously live streams as well. She also does short videos too. So if you want to just get like a quick update on the Quentin Simon case, she'll bring you all that there as well. Give me 1 second. And since we're speaking about other cases, I really hope we get something in the Michael Vaughn case. I hope something is found. And I do hope anyone who bashed the mother and accused the mother of having anything to do with this apologizes to her. That's what I'd like to say to everybody, because I'd seen it go down and it was horrible. The mother was never listed as a suspect and didn't deserve that. So, carrying on back to Debbie Collier. So she was not on the phone with her mother. They had text but not spoken Saturday. She believes her mom texted Jeffrey first. So before the Venmo, she thinks that her mom texted Jeffrey the message that allegedly didn't go through to him, and they found it afterwards through the investigation. And she had said, "I love you" to Jeffrey. She believes she unalived herself due to key intimate details that she isn't releasing. No one saw Debbie Friday, but then says when she saw her Friday, her mom had tears in her eyes and Debbie didn't say goodbye. And now when I'm going to play the old and first media report, she talks about how they parted ways, and like she doesn't say anything alarming like this. So it just seems like if she had something alarming to say, why didn't she say it in her first media interview? Debbie had taken a whole week off prior. Debbie was giving things away, doesn't believe there is life insurance, doesn't know why Debbie was so far away from home, believes Debbie would be ashamed of people accusing Amanda. Debbie had never done illegal drugs and does not believe it's drug related. Venmo message seen around 5 p.m. because she was cleaning, called Steve over and went to her mom's home, yelled at Steve, "Where's my mama?" They called 911. 911 call was not scripted, according to Amanda. Family turned on her, and some even told law enforcement that they thought she did it. She called Enterprise pretending to be her mom in hopes services would find her mom. Enterprise said they could not triangulate location. So she's posing as her mother and doing her own like investigative work. Some people would think that that's normal. Some people would think that's alarming. You guys decide. So law enforcement went through her cell phone. They interviewed her as well as an interrogation. They did search warrants and executed, and she willingly gave DNA as well as Andrew. So they've both given their DNA willingly. So confidential interview with law enforcement where her and law enforcement got back on a better page, and that's sort of talking about how they feel that she respects law enforcement and her brother doesn't. Amanda currently has the Venmo money. It was seized and then returned. Andrew was not sentenced to go to rehab as his charge was for marijuana, and the amount of the Venmo had nothing to do with the rehab. Law enforcement is waiting for 2 reports to come back before they make an announcement. I don't know if one of them is toxicology. I'm just speculating, but I would assume perhaps. Believes Andrew's heart was in the right place, defending her on social media, talks in code about Jeffrey, and that the relationship is not good. Memorial service was awkward as the family believes she's guilty, says her speech was better than her brother's speech. Her feelings are hurt. She was the one that asked law enforcement to wait till after memorial to announce anything. She didn't believe there was mental issues with her mother, says she didn't realize the depth of her mom's depression. So suddenly, this depression's being mentioned. Moved back to Georgia because her relationship with her brother and family in Maryland was so toxic. She missed her mom, got a better job, and quit Habitat for Humanity. She suffers from bipolar disorder. Andrew is not a bad person. Their relationship is not what is being portrayed in the media. Had a miscarriage, and she went off the rails and triggered her bipolar disorder, which was diagnosed in August 2021. And that's possible and very sad. Substance abuse issues, and promised her mom she would stay clean. She passed the drug test for her new job. So those notes came from Criminality, her community page. She broke down the Amanda interview. If you want to see a good breakdown, check out CDT's breakdown of that interview. Now we're going to go to Court TV. But before we play Court TV, let's just recap Amanda's first media interview that she did. I believe it was around 10 days after her mother was found dead. Let's just recap, and I just want to note her appearance is drastically different.
My mom was my everything. Somebody took my whole world from me. I started going to all the different places that I thought she would go, like Walmart, Ulta. I mean, I drove around for at least 2 hours.
At 3:17 that afternoon, Amanda told police she received $2,385 from her mom via Venmo. The money transfer included a message that said, quote, "They're not going to let me go. Love you. There is a key to the house in the blue flower pot by the door."
Immediate hysterical. I'd never been through this before. She was a beautiful, kind, giving woman. And she didn't deserve any of this.
Amanda says the last time she saw her mom was Friday night. They ate dinner, ran some errands, and went home separately. She had this message for her mother's killer.
I just want them to rot in hell. I do, sir. I mean, it's not going to take my pain away. I know it's not. But I want justice for my mom.
And then, of course, this is her Facebook post versus her brother's, who actually is saying that he believes his mother's death was done intentionally by someone else. So just some siblings at odds there, obviously. Now let's get into the court TV thing. I haven't watched it yet. Good morning, Roxanne, Daylana. It's good to see you. Laced with Lacey, thanks for being here. Jessie Lynn, Brittany, Angela B. Thank you guys all for being here. Sherry, Princess Megan, Elsa. And yeah, wasn't it interesting how much she changed her looks? I mean, maybe it means nothing, guys, but I just think that that's very noteworthy. But yeah, a lot of people believe the brother for sure over Amanda. That was the worst acting ever, allegedly says. Agree.
This is video of Debbie Collier inside a Family Dollar store in Georgia at around 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. She's purchasing a red tote, a blue tarp, a poncho, paper towels, and a torch lighter. After leaving the store, her daughter Amanda received a Venmo for over $2,000, which included a cryptic message from her mom. "They are not going to let me go. Love you. There is a key to the house in the blue flower pot by the door." Debbie was found the next day burnt and partially naked 15 minutes away from that convenience store, which was about an hour north of her home in Athens. From the beginning, investigators said it was a homicide and it was personal. But after 2 months, no one has been arrested, and it seems like the homicide theory may or may not be true. And now Debbie's daughter, Amanda, the one who received that Venmo and that strange message, is speaking out publicly for the first time, answering questions on the Crime on the Record podcast hosted by a relative of hers. In the podcast, Amanda says she's been cleared by investigators and her mom died by suicide. Tonight, we'll take a look at that podcast with our own investigators and our own experts.
What the heck is going on?
This Friday, we now offer you the chance to escape
I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you here tonight for closing arguments. This hour, we're going to take a closer look at what's really been one of the most puzzling stories, mysteries, death investigations that we've covered in quite some time. We're talking about Debbie Collier. And it all began at the crime scene, right? So you have or is it a crime scene, right? That's the question we're going to talk about tonight. But, you know, once investigators get there, you want to know, well, what happened here? What happened? And from the beginning, we were hearing this was a homicide investigation. So all of us covering the story and trying to figure out what happened presumed and assumed this was a murder case. And as we heard some more of the peculiar facts surrounding all of it, it sort of confirmed that. You know, what we heard, the limited information that we heard and what we learned as we saw videos and everything, none of it made a lot of sense, but it was, you know, we trusted investigators who said, yeah, this is a homicide investigation. So when that happens, then it's all about, well, okay, we kind of know what happened, sort of, but who did it? Who's responsible? Who would take the life of this mom from Georgia? What possible reason would you have for taking her life? I mean, everything we heard, she was living a pretty normal kind of life. There was nothing peculiar. She wasn't up to anything. Didn't seem to have any enemies in the world. Like, who would do that? You know, and along with that is the question of why would you do that? But now we're hearing maybe that's not what happened. Maybe it's not a homicide investigation. Maybe it's something different. And, you know, we heard little bits and pieces, some coming through leaks and reports that, hey, maybe this was an accident or maybe she took her own life. And wow, that's a lot different. That's way different because investigators were so convinced in the beginning based upon what they saw at the scene. So in trying to understand all of this, it's been difficult, again, because investigators limited information and people connected have not really been speaking out. But now someone is. Amanda Bearden gave a shocking, absolutely shocking interview.
Yeah, shocking is the right word for it. And yes, we love Vinny here. Allegedly, that's a good point. Her 911 call, she asked if she should hire a private detective, because they aren't doing jack. And then she says they handled this so great and have been good to me this entire time. Yeah, it's her sense of reality has just been a roller coaster for all of us. We're trying to get like a grasp of something real from her, and it's very hard, I feel. Good morning, Lucia. It's good to see you. And I just wanted to thank my moderators again. You guys are doing awesome. So thank you so much for being here and just doing what you do. All of this can be used against you in a court of law. Yeah. Very noteworthy, Brittany, for sure.
Earlier today, I had a list of things I was going to do. And then I started watching the Crime on the Record podcast. And for 90 minutes, I did nothing but watch it. This interview was revealing. I mean, you watch the thing at the end of it, I was like, Amanda Bearden, this life that she has led and who she is, you get a much clearer picture of her. And she's filling in the blanks on some of the facts surrounding all of this. And she revealed one thing that really surprised me. It was almost a confirmation of what we heard sort of leaked beforehand, which was how her mom died. Now, you have to understand, everyone that's been covering and following the story, social media and other places, have all been looking at Amanda as a potential suspect in a homicide investigation.
And yeah, allegedly, what Brittany says, in the podcast interview, she denied driving around for 2 hours and going to Walmart in Ulta. So just another example of, her sense of reality and the story being one way one day. And then, weeks later, for some reason, it's changed up. So it's just very alarming.
Investigation, right? Based upon just the strange circumstances and obviously the Venmo and the transaction of money that she got, right? Follow the money, follow the money. Well, today we listened to, or I did, and you need to do it after the show. Here's Amanda Bearden on the Crime on the Record podcast talking about the death of her mother.
You've come out and said that you believe it was suicide, correct?
Yes. No one saw her that day prior on Friday. There were actions. My mom was like giving away things that, now looking back on, I'm like, well, that was weird. Even when I seen her Friday, because we hadn't seen each other in a minute, I saw tears in her eyes. I'd never seen her that sad.
Okay. So, the premise to all this, again, everyone was looking at her as potential suspect, someone that would need to be cleared in all this because of that transfer of money, the relationship. You always look at the people closest to the victim, but we may not even be looking at a homicide investigation anymore. I'm not sure. I don't know where we are in all this, but I want to bring in our special guests to get a little more clarity. Joining us tonight in Alabaster, Alabama, the hosts of the Crime on the Record podcast, Candace and Jason Lawhorn, are with us. Jason, Candace, great to see you tonight. Thanks so much. But you owe me 90 minutes of my life because I was watching that interview and doing nothing else. Can you start and give me a little background about the podcast and about any connection that you have to the family here?
Well, Amanda and I are cousins. So we grew up together when we were younger. We all lived in South Carolina. And then at some point, my immediate family moved back to Alabama and they stayed there. And once her parents divorced, we kind of lost touch for a bit. It wasn't until I saw this come out that I immediately reached out to both Jeffrey and her to get back in touch. And, having the platform that we do, we wanted to, try to help in any way we could.
So, Jason, you already had the podcast before anything happens here, right? You've been doing this for a while, both of you together.
Yeah, we have. And we had done a few episodes on Debbie's case prior to having Amanda on last night.
Just want to pause there real quick and say hello to Switzerland. Adrian, thank you for being here.
And we kind of gone back and forth on whether we were going to cover Debbie's case or not, just out of respect to the family. But we just felt like there was not so much trying to prove innocence or guilt, but just providing a different perspective on looking at Amanda, because everybody sees her as a suspect instead of a person. And we don't have all the facts. And we just felt like it was important to, at least have people see her as a person. So.
Mrs. Kelly asked how old was Debbie. I believe she was 58 or 59. One of the two.
That's why we chose to do it.
And mission accomplished. I'm telling you, I feel like I know so much more about her. We cover it from the outside looking in. People, for obvious reasons, don't necessarily want to come on television and talk about things like this. But the atmosphere, the tone, and everything in that podcast made it very revealing. And Candace, you're not just a podcaster, you're a therapist as well?
I am, yes, I'm a psychotherapist.
Well, I mean, that explains a lot of the way the whole thing happened. So from your perspective, obviously you know a lot about the story going in, but as you're speaking with Amanda for 90 minutes, what sort of unexpected moments occurred? What surprised you a little bit?
I think for us, the biggest shocker was to see the way she felt about the police. I mean, because of seeing so much of the coverage from Jeffrey and how harsh she has been towards the police, we were kind of taken aback that she was so impressed with the police officers that she has dealt with.
That was interesting, right? And it seemed like she had a lot of contact with police, Jason, that she was kind of in communication. We've heard some of those, the calls that were made, that were released, the calls to police, but she was having seemingly an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, that is what she revealed to us, because we were kind of curious about that as well. With police not talking to anyone, how the details of the case and what she knew, but it did seem like that not only did she have quite a few conversations with police, but even after being, as she said last night, interrogated by them, the fact that she still had so much respect for them, and even going out to say that the one investigator, he felt like it was his responsibility because he felt so strongly to take care of what he considered his mom, is what she was saying. So I'm with Candace on the way that she just spoke about law enforcement, because I don't know too many people that speak that highly of law enforcement after being interrogated several times.
Not at all. And I mean, you think about it, okay, they're investigating the death of your mother and they're interrogating you. So it's like, wait a minute, it's my mom. And you can understand how things go. And it usually does go that way. Like everyone else, this case has all these very peculiar facts and circumstances, but many people are trying to put them together and have a view of the case based upon the information that we've learned. Did anything that you learned, or just by speaking with Amanda and hearing her, I mean, at length, talk about things, did it change your mind about anything in the case?
I don't think so. I think that, starting out, we did not have a conclusion to this. I mean, we just wanted to provide, just like in a trial, you can't have the prosecution and then just go to the jury. I mean, you need the defense as well. And I felt like her having both sides would be a good thing, but we still had not come to any conclusion. And recently, after hearing, that the police had informed her she's been cleared, and then talking to her last night and hearing about these conversations with the police, I mean, we've kind of been in her corner that, she has been cleared for quite a while now.
Yeah, and I will be honest, like I said on the podcast last night, when we first found out about this, we first heard about the case, I thought she did it. Like I was on that side of it. And
Very strange. So this guy, the husband of her cousin, thought that Amanda had done it before, the interview that they did. And she said, she told us that she'd been cleared. And it's like, Brittany, you took the words out of my mouth. The police can lie and will lie to you for sure. For sure. Like, they're not going to just tell certain suspects that they're a suspect. It's all tactic. It's a game. You know what I mean? Cat and mouse. So it's just interesting that, yes, Ashley, that her cousin is saying, she told us she was cleared. And it's like, wait a minute, law enforcement hasn't come out and cleared anybody. I mean, they've changed their theory, but they haven't even come out changing their theory. It's only been said through quote unquote sources. And remember, these sources that have come out saying all this new stuff, Jeffrey, the son, has tried to contact those sources and claimed that early on they were trying to contact him for a story and he was ignoring them and mad about the media butting in while he was grieving his mother's death. And then all this information came out and the story switched up and the sources started reporting new information that Jeffrey didn't know anything about. So he tries to contact the sources and can't get a hold of them. And we have gone through in other live streams him, trying to get a hold of that lady that was on court TV, forget her name, Judy something maybe, forgot. But either way, she's like leaking all these sources. So he goes and calls the sheriff and he's like, what is going on? Like, why is all this new information coming out before it's coming to family? Why am I finding out that it might not be a homicide through the media? And he claims the sheriff laughs at him, so it's very all over the place. But ultimately, law enforcement hasn't come out and made a statement in forever. They've never come out and said, we're changing up the manner of death now.
The more we learned and I kind of started to get the feeling that maybe that wasn't the case. And then, so I felt that way before we talked last night, but it just really, for me, it just really solidified everything that I already thought.
What, from your perspective, that's interesting, Jason. Was there a particular fact, piece of evidence, scenario, timeline? What was it that sort of changed your mind a little bit? They're like, hey, wait a minute, this is something else.
Yeah, I don't know if there was one specific.
And here he can't even name one specific thing that made him decide that Amanda was innocent. To me, that interview made her look more guilty to me. What do you guys think? I'm sorry, but I'm not trying to just be harsh on her, but I really was more suspicious with the things that she was saying because her story changed again. Key things were just different. And, her pretending to be her mother, posing as her to call the rental company, all that stuff. I'm like, what exactly, Seagate? Was it his wife that made him change his mind? Or was it the views they're getting on the channel, in case they want Amanda on again? I don't know. I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm just speculating because I feel like a lot of people were way more suspicious of her after that interview. Pink Dahlia said, just said that too, ATS. The interview made me suspicious. Amanda is a pathological liar. Agree. They did not help her. Like they said, they did quite the opposite. Yeah, I mean, I think even Vinny is like, so what? Like, look at his face right now. He's like trying to understand. Alrighty.
Specific thing I could say, this is what it was, but I listened to the 911 calls several times, and I thought either she was an amazing actress or this had to be legitimate. And then her not coming out and just trying to defend herself over and over again like most people would have. And she took an active role in trying to assist the police. I know there are times when suspects want to be close to the investigation so they can try and figure out what's going on, but it was like she was almost doing her own in conjunction with law enforcement. So, and then just the conversations that we've had with her, or actually my wife has had with her, it really kind of just hit home. And then that emotion last night, like there's no way you fake that. Like that.
That's true. Blue Petunias said they don't think she's innocent. They're lying to keep her around and get her to talk more.
Emotion, just that raw emotion she had last night when she was talking about her mom, and she was willing to talk about the things that everybody has questions about.
Yeah, and for folks who, again, wait till after the show, but then you're going to take a look at it. You were putting out the questions that were coming from social media, and we know everyone's been talking about this case and wondering. But what questions do you still have about that day and the death of Debbie Collier?
Sadly, I think the questions that we have are probably questions that I don't know anyone will ever get an answer to. But even as a therapist, I see that with people that die by suicide. When someone gets to that point, they're not always thinking rationally, and they make decisions that we don't understand. And I think that that's going to be hard for a lot of people because they want it wrapped up with a bow. And it's not. I mean, we're not going to understand why she went into the woods. We're not going to understand why she bought a tarp and this and that. I just think that it's really going to be hard for any of those questions to be answered.
All right, Candace and Jason from the Crime on the Record podcast staying with us. When we come back, we're going to play a few more clips from the podcast, get reaction from the hosts, plus coming up next hour. In Las Vegas, breaking news, former Playboy model Kelsey Turner accused of murdering
Uh, 59 years old. No, she has no.
Himself is set to learn his fate.
And you'll see it all right here on Court TV.
The deadly parade crash sentencing. Live coverage Tuesday on
0095.
She's 59 years old. No, she has no medical issues like that. And according to her daughter, who went up and her purse is still here with her driver's license. The only thing is the phone is gone, and she sent her daughter a text about 2 hours ago saying they won't let me go. Whatever that means, we don't know.
That's the 911 call. Of course, we're talking about the death of Debbie Collier. At first, she was missing. Then she was found dead in the woods. Started as a homicide investigation, and we're hearing.
I'm still trying to find one person who doesn't think that Amanda would know who they are in the Venmo. And I know people have speculated, well, maybe it was work and she was going to work, or she was at work and they needed her to stay longer. No, because Jeffrey's also come out saying my mother doesn't work weekends. She's takes it easy. She relaxes. Even Steve says, I thought she was grocery shopping because that's what she does on the, Saturdays. So no, she wasn't at work. So they is not referring to her boss or whatever. So I still have yet to find one person who doesn't think that Amanda knows who they are.
Now it may not be that. It could end up being a death by suicide. Amanda Bearden is Debbie Collier's daughter. She spoke on the Crime on the Record podcast, revealing interview. Here's part of it.
Well, first of all, I was in a complete state of terror, anger. I was a basket case because I didn't know what to think. I started calling Steve over and over and over again. I finally got in touch with him while I was on. I actually went over to my mom's house because, what I had just read, I didn't want to believe.
And of course, reacting to that very cryptic Venmo message and money as well. Let's bring back in Candace and Jason Lawhorn. They are the hosts of the Crime on the Record podcast. Okay, that's always been the thing that I think for everyone, when they first hear about the story, it's the Venmo transfer and the cryptic message. What did Amanda have? Did she have any idea? Did she understand what it was about?
She did not. And I think.
So how do they get a whole hour and a half interview with Amanda and not get her to explain the Venmo further? Sorry, but come on now. Maybe they're hoping for another interview to kind of go over certain things that are very, very important. Allegedly, with Brittany J said, I noticed Amanda threw a little shade at Steve as well. Can you elaborate a little bit? I missed it. If it wasn't for the Venmo, it might be excusable. And that's the thing, too. It's like, it's just, why send the son a text, a different way of communicating than to the daughter? You know what I mean? Like, to send her that money, like, why was that necessary to do? Like, if you're going to leave the world, obviously your items and stuff would go to your children or beneficiaries or whatever, We have no knowledge of her having a will. Let's say she didn't have a will. Then things get a little bit more complicated as far as where your assets go, right? So maybe Amanda could argue that, well, she didn't have a will, so she wanted to make sure I got this money. It's like, poor Steve, for one. But it's strange, you know what I mean? To text the son that didn't go through and then to send the daughter the Venmo with money and message. And then to have to tell the daughter where a key is. The key is under the blue flower pot by the front door. I don't know, guys. I'm not buying the unalive scenario.
That's been very hard for people to understand because they assume she'd have every indication when Debbie said that that meant she would know who they were. And I think that's part of the reason that she was so caught off guard and confused. And the part of that got her so panicked, because she was like, what in the world? I don't understand what she's even saying here.
And how about the money, Jason? A lot of people have been talking about the money. A lot of investigators that I speak to, when they're investigating a crime, a lot of times they say, follow the money. Well, the money leads to her.
Yeah, it does. And she explained on the show last night that they did freeze her accounts, and then they looked at it, whether it be Habersham County, the GBI, the FBI. They looked at it, saw there was nothing criminal that they could see, and they released it back to her. So she currently has the money. She hasn't spent any of it. But for us, I think it's kind of telling that they returned it. I mean, I've never seen where, if there's something that's evidence in a case, that they're going to return it to a suspect.
And here's my theory on that. It's not really like it is evidence in the case, but it was a transaction of money, like virtually. So it's not like this money was given to Amanda like in an envelope in her car. She opened the door and there was a thing of envelope or an envelope with cash. You know what I mean? So there's nothing for law enforcement to print or track when it's like this transactional thing. So it doesn't really like stun me that they gave the money back. Like that to me doesn't mean like you're cleared. But I mean, this cousin is thinking that, cousin-in-law, whatever you want to call him. To me, what do you guys think? Like the money being given back, does that mean to you guys that must mean she's innocent? And Blue Petunia said, so she has a car, but Steve comes home to an unseemingly empty home, no cars in driveway, and Amanda's there. Right. And how convenient the Venmo message to her told her where a key was. That's what I've been saying the whole time. Like I'm really thinking there was no key under the blue flower pot and that Amanda got access to the house another way, but had to explain her way to get access to the house. I've been saying this for weeks, guys, and everyone I don't know. I don't know if you guys get where I'm getting at. Sometimes it's hard to explain, but I just feel like that Venmo thing was just a fake message. And then they needed a way to say how they were getting to the house. So that was described in the message. So allegedly, Brittany J says, yes. So when she asked about Steve, Amanda says, I'm not going to speak negatively about my stepdad. We have been grieving together, as if there are things she can say, but she's not going to comment. Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to say anything negatively. Yeah, as if there are things to say negatively. Strange. I thought I heard very early on Amanda say they weren't supposed to kill her, which makes sense to me. Why would Amanda want her mom dead? That was her money supplier. Yeah, that's true. I mean, even her brother says my mom was my sister's lifeline. And we see the transaction history, for someone who's so independent and financially stable, like Amanda tried to come across in that interview too, when she kept boasting about her job and this and that. Why was she so dependent on her mother to kind of give her cash here and there? It seems, I don't know. She's 30, what? She's older than me, I know. So, I mean, I don't know. Wait, somebody said something that I thought was interesting. Now, I don't know if I can find it. She said, I called Steve and finally got a hold of him. I just went over it. That's the weirdest lie out I ever heard. Right. Just scrolling through chat, guys, and then I'll press play. If I find that other comment, I'll pull it up on the screen, okay?
The proceeds of a crime, you wouldn't either, right? Because a lot of people wondering, did she Venmo herself? Did she have access to the account? All of that. Let's take a listen to another piece of the interview here. And again, talking about something that you mentioned, which is that relationship. And it's really two relationships. The relationship of the family with police and the relationship of the family to one another. Let's take a listen.
Well, throughout of this, I've had family members, they didn't understand. Why no one was speaking to them. Well, maybe it was because I didn't harass them. Maybe, even, I'm not going to say they had their opinions of me in the beginning, but I wasn't worried about it. I knew that the truth was going to come out. And I told them, I said, y'all going to end up apologizing to me.
Yeah, definitely part of the interview where you could tell there's a whole lot of tension in the family. And I say the family, Candace, I guess it's kind of your family too, to a certain extent. How
Okay, so Patricia said she also stated she drove her around trying to find her at different stores, but later laughed on this interview and said, no, that's not true. And we just played her first media interview, first and only like media interview, where she's like, I drove around, for like 2 hours to her favorite stores, Walmart, Ulta. So I need to find the minute mark of her denying that.
would you describe that? Because there was a lot of talk in the podcast about the memorial service and how awkward all of this was because her own family members believed that she was the one responsible.
Yeah, and not just, everyone has all these thoughts, and you don't know what's going on. And the police aren't telling you anything, so it's only natural to be curious about things. But I think it was so hurtful to her to have family actually vocalize that. I mean, it's kind of like when you're kids. You can talk to my brother like that, but or I can talk to my brother like that, but you don't talk to him that way. That's not okay. And I think that was the way she expected to be treated by family. Like, look, the world may think this, but your family, you should be standing by my side. And when they didn't do that, I think that was heartbreaking for her.
Now, we had her brother, Jeffrey, on the show, and he talked about his relationship with law enforcement as well. And it seems much, much different. Let's take a listen.
So part of my complaint was during the phone call that I had with the sheriff, Mr. Joey Terrell, I was expressing some concerns for the way in which communication has occurred during the investigation, which, I want people to know I'm trying to be very realistic here, and I understand that, you're not always going to be privy to everything, but I was trying to express some of the concerns about the way in which information was being released, some leaks of information that was being given out to the public before the family, based on some reporting and some reporters that I've talked to who said that they got it from law enforcement. And I also wanted to address, what steps have been taken by his office, and then if any, and then what steps could be taken.
So, Jason, Jeffrey was really describing a lot of tension between him and law enforcement and that communication, lack of communication at times. Candace has a completely different relationship, seemingly. Jeffrey really didn't talk about his sister, but Amanda did talk about her brother during your podcast. How would you describe from that interview where you think their relationship is at this point, where they both have suffered this incredible loss of their mom?
I guess you could infer that it's not great. But during the podcast, there was a reason we didn't go into their relationship. And the reason being is, regardless of whether it's really bad or whatever, we wanted to make sure that at the end of all of this, there's a chance for them to reconcile whatever disagreements they may have right now. The last thing we needed to do was just cause just a ton of just turmoil and anger between the two while we're talking to her about the death of both of their mother. So we just kind of stayed back from that a little bit. We did just let her, talk about it, but we didn't have any questions specifically for her when it came to that, except for, the memorial service and what that was like. But we didn't want to go deep into that part. We just wanted to make sure that everything was left open for reconcilement at a later date, if that's what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got that vibe from both of you in the way you were extremely thoughtful in the way you did this interview, which wasn't an easy interview. But Candace, she was the one that seemed to be volunteering some of that information and felt like I think she wanted to get it off her chest because, and I don't know why, but she would from time to time say, I'm going to put this out there, right? And every time she would preface something by saying, I'm going to put this out there, it was a doozy. It was like, wow, you can tell how much this has really, really impacted her and how tough all this has been. And one of those things was relative to her brother. So what are your thoughts about where she is right now? Kind of like mentally and everything else in her life. You lose your mom, people are pointing the finger at you. Your own family members are suspicious of you. Where do you think she is right now?
I think she's starting to get to a better place. I mean, she's, I think the drug information has people thinking that she has just, she's strung out even right now on her couch, and that is not the case. She did discuss some of that with us, and she has been sober for a while. She has gotten medicated for any mental health struggles she has. She has a very good job. She's working every day. I think that she's really, really trying to get back on track, but it's been so hard with trying to grieve during all of this. So we were really hoping that last night would, if nothing else, give her some kind of closure to start that process.
Well, I've posted the link on my Facebook page so people can go there. It's Crime on the Record. You absolutely need to watch all 90 minutes of this. Candace and Jason, again, incredible work.
And Vinny just said the channel that this is on. And Mel Mac just shared the link to a really good breakdown by CDT of the 1.5-hour interview. So, honestly, I would watch CDT's breakdown of it because she's got all these notes on what Amanda has said thus far and what Andrew has said thus far, like including Andrew's comments on social media that he's come out saying, defending Amanda for, and then now he's deleted the account. So all this stuff is deleted off of YouTube and other social media platforms. So definitely recommend that breakdown. And her channel is always linked in my description box for sure. And while I have it paused, a lot of my moderators have channels themselves. And I was thinking at the end of the stream when we're all saying goodbye, if you guys want to link your channels in the live chat, and, I'm totally cool with that too. So, I have good sleuthing friends and moderators too. So there's other avenues in the community, in case you guys are new here, that I definitely think you should explore and stick around and be a part of our little community. So thank you guys.
Really. And again, I'm not overselling this, folks. It's like it was so incredibly revealing and real in a story that we've been following here for quite some time from a different place. This puts you into the middle of all of it. So we appreciate your time tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, folks, when we come back, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in some of our experts, get some reaction to what Amanda has revealed, what they think about the status of this investigation, and does it look more like a suicide now? All those questions when we come back.
5066.
I think the reason my mother, the Venmo text read the way that it read was because she knew that I battled with mental health, some pretty serious mental health issues myself. And I think maybe she just said those things to make maybe the acceptance of it easier.
That's Amanda Bearden. She is the daughter of Debbie Collier. Debbie Collier, mysterious death. Originally, we thought it was a homicide. Now we're hearing maybe it's not homicide, could be death by suicide. We haven't heard. We just don't know now anymore exactly what happened. But that's her daughter talking about the Venmo message that she received. It was so cryptic and what she took away from it. I want to play more of her. Again, this is from the Crime on the Record podcast. Here describing the moment when officers told her that her mom had passed away.
They were maybe in those woods 10 minutes. And the police officer came back and he said, "Come here." And I knew. Yeah, I've argued with him. I even hit his bulletproof vest a few times. I'm sorry. I didn't hit him, but he was just hugging me. I kept saying, "Are you sure? Are you sure? How do you know?" And he wouldn't tell me anything. He just said, "Believe me, she's gone."
One of the most emotional parts of that interview. So let's bring in our guests and get a little perspective on what we're talking about tonight. Joining me tonight in Jacksonville, Alabama, Professor of Forensics.
Oh, I'm really excited to get into this panel, so I won't be pausing too much because I just want to listen to it and get through it. But I just wanted to pause it real quick. Nicole says she looks to the left so much. I don't know what that means, but it's strange. I almost feel like Andrew was in the room with her. I think at one point she tells him to shut the door or whatever. And She was a little bit distracted a few times streaming through her phone because I guess her phone kept buzzing and she was like, oh, sorry, getting messages. I speculated that perhaps Andrew was feeding her answers even through text messages. Again, I don't have any proof of that, just something that I think is possible to consider. And then at the one point at the end, she wanted to let everyone know that Andrew's also been cleared. So before the interview was over, very at the end, they're concluding things and all that. And she's like, and Andrew's been cleared. And it's like, right.
At Jacksonville State University, former senior investigator for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office and the host of the Body Bags podcast. Joseph Scott Morgan is with us. In Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen, who's been following every part of this case very closely. In Orlando, Florida, psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Cheney Lacey is with us. And in Londonderry, New Hampshire, former police officer, founder of the Forensic Education LLC, Michael McCutcheon is with us. Michael, I want to start with you. We just saw those clips, very emotional moment in that interview. As a body language expert, what are you seeing? What are you hearing in that very emotional part of the interview?
So there were a couple of things. I like you said in the earlier segments, I did watch the whole thing. And taking it all together, not just that specific clip, because clearly she's emotional. And I believe that she's emotional. I don't believe she's acting or pretending to be emotional. But when she's describing the buildup until she, to that moment that you just played, she has lots of missing information and she jumps information. It's kind of like the yada, yada, yada. And then he said this kind of thing. And it's those big gaps in information that as an interrogator or an interviewer trying to get that information, that's where I would be asking, saying, and again, I know in the podcast a little different, where I would say, could you just clarify this piece? Could you tell me what you did here before you got there? She mentioned, I arrived there, all the police are there, and then I asked to use the bathroom. That's a little strange. I would try to have a little more detail on the descriptors of the entire incident building up to that moment.
And when you say yada, I mean, she literally said yada, yada, yada several times. She was doing that in part of the description. Joseph Scott Morgan, let me ask you about the big part of this is that she has, she's convinced that her mom died by suicide. She believes that's what investigators are going to reveal at some point. What are your thoughts about what we know? And again, it's limited to a certain extent about what we know about the scene, but the circumstances of this case leading to a potential suicide ruling here.
Well, based upon the limited, and I mean very limited information that we have, it would seem to be an atypical suicide because of the circumstances. I think one of the most striking things for me is the disrobing. They have hinted at least that she was absent her underwear. We've got these burns, and again, they've been very non-specific about that. The most, I guess, specific.
I have never heard this, guys. I'm watching this for the first time with you guys. I've never heard that she was missing her underwear. Is he talking about her bra? Because we did hear that she was absent of a shirt and stuff. And we chalked it up to the flash fire burning it. I've never heard this. Do you guys know anything about this? Did we hear him correctly? Hold on. Okay, so Michael McCutcheons is Brittany's neighbor. He is actually nice, brought my kids candy and the dog's treats for Halloween. Aw. Yeah, I sub to his channel. We share his videos sometimes, and I'm always telling people to subscribe because I don't know, I feel like people don't know he's got a lot of information on his channel too. Is he still active law enforcement or is he retired? I never heard underwear. I heard mention that her underwear was missing. Who, when, and where? I have never said that. I've never heard that. And yes, I've heard naked from waist up. We've even heard nude. Like they've said partially nude, then, or no, they said nude first. Then the sheriff, and I think it's on a Court TV episode of this because they've done, I think, maybe 3 or 4. The sheriff is on here on camera saying partially nude. So he changed it up. And then, yeah, so I have never heard that before. I need to rewind that and re-listen to that and reabsorb that because I'm just so stunned.
it would seem to be an atypical suicide because of the circumstances. I think one of the most striking things for me is the disrobing. You know, they have hinted at least that she was absent her underwear. We've got these burns, and again, they've been very nonspecific about that. The most, I guess, specific information that I have heard over the course of time are abdominal burns. And I find that kind of interesting because if it is in fact suicide and fire is involved, that's something that we call self-immolation, and those are very rare. And I've stated on several occasions that over the course of my career, and again, my career is only one little slice of the pie, but in New Orleans and Atlanta, I think I may have worked 2 or 3 over that entire period of time that I've been investigating deaths. They are very rare. So I think I'd like to know what they believe, at least, are the causal factors of her death. And I'm still stumped as to why we don't have an autopsy report yet.
That is obviously the biggest of all pieces, right? Jason Jensen, from your perspective, investigating this and having listened to what Amanda had to say.
Now, I just think that that's noteworthy too about the autopsy. I don't think we're being overzealous by expecting it. I've just looked at the date, November 15th today. We still have nothing about the autopsy. This was what date was this case? September 11th, 12th she was found, I believe. Help me out, guys. Or was it the 11th she was found? Either way, guys, I feel like at this point, a autopsy, something, even a preliminary report isn't asking for too much at this point. I believe the Watts case, the media was hounding the county, Weld County, for the autopsy, and they were like dragging their feet given Shanann's autopsy, and the news was HLN. It was when, what's her name, worked there, Ashley Banfield worked there. She was like, we're still waiting on the autopsy, and that was sooner than we're asking for it now. So I don't think that it's not, I feel like it's strange we haven't gotten even a preliminary report. Sorry, guys.
Over the course of 90 minutes, what did you hear? What questions do you still have? What things did you learn? What are you questioning about what she may have said?
Yeah, thanks, Benny. When I was listening to Amanda in that podcast, what I saw was a lot of genuineness about her. And you pointed out earlier that she answers a lot of the questions that we had over the course of this investigation. You know, like she answered questions about the Venmo. She answered questions about the scene. So when I hear that stuff, coupled with some of the stuff that we had revealed early on, like the surveillance footage and the exterior footage of the Family Dollar, I'm seeing not a crime at all. I'm seeing this death really leans towards suicide. And what I gleaned from it, you know, we're all waiting on the medical examiner autopsy to come out. I'm expecting this to be butane inhalation, to be honest.
Dr. Janie Lacey, couple things here. One, we're talking about a potential suicide, but I want to talk first about Amanda. At the end of the interview, they spend some time talking about her.
Yes, Pink Dahlia. I had heard that from CDT. Like I said, I'm watching this sort of live for the first time with you guys, but I had spoken with her on her thoughts behind the scenes. And yeah, she had said that Jason Jensen aligned with the unaliving theory possibly. And that he thought, I don't know. I'm stunned by that too. Maybe it's all a play to, you know, make Amanda feel safe. You know what I mean? There's been cases where law enforcement has spoken with media and been like, put this out, you know, because we know that the suspect's watching and we want them to feel a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? Maybe I'm just wishful thinking.
Being diagnosed as bipolar. And she's admitted that she has had some problems with drugs in the past. I know that's a bad combination, but I know people will, if they're struggling, they'll self-medicate. What are your thoughts about that part of her life and now being put in the middle of all of this?
I think it was very vulnerable for her to put out that information, as well as talking about her drug abuse issues. And it is very common when we see someone that has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, if they're not following their psychologist or psychiatrist's recommendations, then there's a lot of turmoil that can happen internally. So then there is a lot of medication, drug abuse, self-harm. And we see a lot of different ways of which someone will try to regulate all the chaos and all the things that they may feel inside. So for her to share that information could probably make some sense as we look at her life, and particularly if there was some family history of mental illness as well.
Let me give the follow-up now. We've seen the video, and Amanda confirmed that that's her mom in the surveillance video from the dollar store, the Family Dollar store. This is the other part of this case I can't get beyond, is that it's game day. It's literally Saturday, game day, college football. She's an Alabama, Georgia Bulldog fan. I don't know how you can be a fan of both, but she was. She's dressed up in red. She's got her jersey on, her visor. And that's when she's going to take her life? Like, is that a disconnect, or is it?
Yeah, it's just, she's prepped for the game. And everyone said, well, she was going, before the unalive theory or accidental theory was pushed out there, people were saying she was dressed for the game. She was going somewhere. And like, it made sense. People even speculated she was on her way to the stadium. I think it is interesting, like Vinny just said, how is she a fan of Alabama and Georgia when they're rivals, because the Sun did say she liked the Georgia Bulldogs and they were playing that day. It was game day. But honestly, she's a bigger Alabama fan. So people, it kind of goes back to her outfit was off that day. Sun says I'd never seen her wear shorts in 5 years. Us sleuthers haven't found a pair of or a photo of her showing legs, really. I don't think I have one. There might be maybe one floating out there. I don't know. I'm sure someone will correct me though. But still, never seen her wear a visor in any of these other photos. It's just certain things stand out. Some people think her shoes looks too big. So it's all, why would you dress for team spirit to go unalive yourself? I don't know, guys. And the fact that, yes, people do this method this way, but not only is it very, very small statistically, we have to also consider the fact that she's a woman. So even though it's very small statistically, you have to consider her gender too, like it's not something typical, like typically you would see. I don't know, guys. It's just very hard for me to sell it. And I'm not just stuck on my theories. And I'm, you guys know that I'm open-minded all the time. And yeah, somebody mentioned I didn't see tears. I don't see any wet tears. And then, yeah, no mention of the visor being found or whatever either. And if she was labeled in the police report first as nude, I would say that would mean no visor on her head too. If it burned, it just doesn't just burn up all of it. Like, wouldn't that be mentioned also? Like plastic visor melted to head or something like that. You know what I mean? So it comes out as saying nude. They come out again saying partially nude. No mention of the visor. No mention of the lighter, the visor, the poncho, or the keys. Or her like debit cards. You know what I mean? Or did they mention finding her credit cards or whatever she used for the transaction here? You guys let me know.
Or is that just, it doesn't mean anything? Like you're dressed up for game day.
When we look at someone who has had death by suicide and we look at the steps that have happened before them, sometimes we'll see some patterns and sometimes we'll see things that are not, that do not make sense. So when we look at her behavior on what we can see in the record and the video and those types of things. I don't necessarily put a lot of weight on it either or, because we know just with our research and with evidence that sometimes there's not a typical pattern depending on the circumstances of the person in particular. But once we see all the moving pieces and we put some context to it, as far as we look at from the psychological perspective, it will make sense in the context of the story that we can lay out. But just looking at that one piece with what we know, it doesn't necessarily ring any type of bells or put anything that's not unusual when it comes to someone that may have committed or may have died by suicide.
All right, guests staying with us. We're going to talk more about this. We've got more from the interview of Amanda Bearden. Also, coming up next hour. In Los Angeles.
The new with Tamron Hall all-day marathon.
And hello, everyone who joined us. Thanks for being here. Give us a like if you haven't already.
Jury find the defendant guilty.
Is set to learn his fate.
And you'll see it all right here on Court TV.
The deadly parade crash sentencing.
Yeah, Steve has been really quiet. People said that he did an interview. I need to look it up. Somebody said it in my last one, but it was not on video.
Member accused me of murder, and the next thing I know, I'm in a cop car being taken away.
A family member accused me of murder. Next thing I know, I'm in a cop car being taken away. Correction, a key family member. So is it Jeff or is it Steve?
That key family member accused me of murder, and the next thing I know, I'm in a cop car being taken away for an interrogation. They all thought I did it. They all came out and told me to my face they think I did it. Some of them lied about it.
Unbelievable moment in that podcast where Amanda Bearden's talking about going to the memorial service for her mom and family members coming up to her face, accusing her of murdering her mother. Let's bring back in our guests, Joseph Scott Morgan, Jason Jensen, Dr. Janie Lacey, and Michael McCutcheon with us. Michael, your thoughts. Were there any indicators, you watched the entire podcast, any indicators of deceit where maybe she was saying something and kind of, some things that you look for?
Similar to my my point in the beginning of when she gives very specific details throughout when it doesn't really mean anything about when she's driving or if she stopped here and then if she did this, very, very specific. But then when you're getting to the points that have very specific meaning, then it disappears. That specificity disappears, the you-knows come in, but it's that speech pattern that isn't there when she's telling a long part of her story and she's giving you a lot of information and you're going, okay, all right, let's get to what you want to tell me. And then when we get to the part of them, how she got there, where her mom was and how she arrived, it's 1 minute of a 15-minute story. And I see that very deceptive, where I'm trying to overwhelm you with facts and details to try to draw your attention, like, oh, well, this can't be made up because you've given me a lot of facts. Not a lot of facts about the specific thing I'm asking about, but it's a very common deceptive technique. And then the other piece I think they said it in one of the segments. So she said the Venmo message of they, that pronoun to me is what really just jumped out without any before or after, just referring to someone as they or assuming that the other person knows who you're talking about. They did something, and I'm telling you that. You should know who they is. And I found that to be very peculiar.
Joseph Scott Morgan, how about the family dynamics? You're at the memorial and your own family members are pointing the finger at you. Do you put any weight in that in an investigation?
Well, I think that you have to, those individuals that are in your intimate circle, you're going to know more about the individuals historically, going back problems in the family and that sort of thing. So maybe there was suspicion on the part of some of the family members because of some of the familial histrionics. But I don't know how much weight I would assign to it. Again, Vinny, you're talking to a scientist. So I am going to lean more toward the science in this case because there's so much to deal with here that it's going to point us into the direction as opposed to more of the speculative side. I think there are going to be far more answers revealed in the scientific testing that's going to come.
Jason Jensen, were you surprised that she sat there for 90 minutes?
Well, yeah, as soon as I caught word that she was live on a podcast last night, I had to find it because I did not expect that to happen. She's been more or less, identified as a prime suspect in her mother's murder because of the Venmo and, the fact that she's benefiting from that.
Good morning, Roll.
There's been a lot of speculation that was somebody in the back of the van and was that them? And we over time have discussed, well, the cell phone GPS data from Amanda's phone or her boyfriend Andrew's phone or something would be revealing and identify whether or not they were in the vicinity of Debbie's van and the trip to the Family Dollar. But it's been unfair that so much information kind of leaned towards Amanda to begin with, and now we get to hear Amanda's side where, it sounds like she's innocent.
We are out of time tonight. We'll continue to cover this story. Thank you so much, everyone.
So Vinny said he's going to continue to cover the story, and we will too, of course. I have to get going. I have obviously things to do, like I'm sure you guys do too. What do you guys think overall? I feel like Mike McCutcheon, the law enforcement commentator there, had, everything that we were kind of talking about already these last few days. Again, this interview with Amanda, an hour and a half, came out last week, I believe last Wednesday on, what's the channel again, guys? Crime on the Record podcast. Is that right? It's mentioned numerous times in that court TV thing. CDT, that channel I do know. And she actually did a 2-part breakdown of that interview. And I comment and chat and all that. And you guys are there giving your input too. And all of your guys' firsthand impressions of that too. So even if you guys want to rewatch a breakdown or whatever, check that out. But, ultimately, like he said, Michael McCutcheon said she gave runaround information, very much added details about very non-important things. Other things that she was asked on, like somebody had said earlier that she had gotten defensive when they asked her about the Venmo. There was another part where she got defensive and rude too. And I believe it was about the fact that Debbie was wearing shorts. It was very awkward. Check it out. But she just is like, they speculated maybe she was wearing white leggings, and she was like, oh, my mom would never wear leggings. Well, it just felt very rude. Just there were parts where she could have just clarified things very factually and just like kind and respectful, but she was just annoyed with certain questions, which were important questions. You know what I mean? Like things that we've all just kind of been wondering, like, if your brother was over here saying he hasn't seen your mom wear shorts or whatever in 5 years, could she have been wearing white leggings? Like all you had to say was no. And I've seen my mom wear shorts, or, even if she didn't wear shorts, the weather that day was this temperature or whatever, but it was nothing like that from Amanda. It was never like a clear answer like that. It was just always, anger, frustration with the questions, irritability. A lot of her mannerisms, again, were all over the place. You couldn't like take your eyes off of it, but it was just, yeah, she said her mom wouldn't wear tights, but would wear pantyhose. Oh, Amanda. again, guys, I don't know. It's very suspicious. I hate when I have to come across as like suspicious about certain characters that maybe aren't being shown. I don't know, guys. This whole unaliving thing and maybe accidental thing. Here's the thing, though, is Amanda doesn't even think it's like an accident. Because when that source came out, it was saying that they were saying that it might not have been murder. So it could have been accidental or an unaliving. And then Amanda is like, yeah, it's unaliving because I have extra evidence that you guys don't have and I can't speak on. Why, though? You know what I mean? If it's not a criminal investigation, you're saying, and it's just, I don't know. I just think it's very strange that you would automatically be like, yep, well, she was giving away all her stuff. Like, what? Very weird. I don't know. And everything is just Amanda's word against, her. Now all of a sudden she's saying, well, now I realize that she was crying, but she didn't mention it at all in her interview with the media. Like, wouldn't you say, like, I don't know, we had a strange interaction our last time together, but instead her first initial thing was like, we parted ways, everything was fine. So we're going to play that interview and just exit the stream. So I really appreciate you guys being here. I'll I'll replay that video with her on the media, and then I'll just close the stream out. So this will be my goodbye. So goodbye, everybody. We will talk very soon, and I hope you enjoy your week. I don't know when I'll be live again, what I'll be live on, but just check back. It'll be soon, maybe before the end of the week, or I'll put out a short video related to the Delphi case or something else. But you'll know if you join my Facebook group too. I have updates in there about when I go live and stuff. So that group is called Open Discussion on Disturbing True Crime Cases. And we cover more cases in there in sort of a Facebook forum rather than here on YouTube. So both ways you can discuss true crime. So I hope to see you guys all soon. And I really appreciate you guys all being here. I will play Amanda's video and then it will be over. So bye, everybody. Appreciate you. And I'll be in chat while we exit.
My mom was my everything. Somebody took my whole world from me. I started going to all the different places that I thought she would go, like Walmart, Ulta. I mean, I drove around for at least 2 hours.
At 3:17 that afternoon, Amanda told police she received $2,385 from her mom via Venmo. The money transfer included a message that said, quote, "They're not going to let me go. Love you. There is a key to the house in the blue flower pot by the door."
Immediate hysterical. I'd never been through this before. She was a beautiful, kind, giving woman. And she didn't deserve any of this.
Amanda says the last time she saw her mom was Friday night. They ate dinner, ran some errands, and went home separately. She had this message for her mother's killer.
I just want them to rot in hell. I do, sir. I mean, it's not going to take my pain away. I know it's not. But I want justice for my mom.